Want to be more thorough while also working faster? It doesn't matter if you're on the red or blue team, an augmented reality overlay can enable you to be more thorough and faster at the same time. No glasses, no goggles, Polarity delivers this superpower as an overlay on top of your existing workflow and tools. The free Community Edition connects to the data you care about to overlay the context you need to make informed decisions. Apply for early access today at securityweekly.com/polarity. Elastic Security empowers security teams everywhere to prevent, detect, and respond to threats quickly through a unified solution. And it's free and open, putting you in control. Use Elastic Security to eliminate blind spots by analyzing all of your data, no matter its volume, format, or age. Stop threats at scale with automated threat and anomaly detection, and arm every analyst with fast search and integrated case management. Download or try Elastic SIEM for free and experience the benefits of an open security solution backed by world-class security research at securityweekly.com/elastic. The question is simple. Have any of the systems on my network been compromised? The answer is harder than it should be. Enter AI Hunter. Active Countermeasures has automated and streamlined techniques used by the best pen testers and threat hunters in the industry to create AI Hunter, a network threat hunting solution that does the first pass of a hunt for you to identify systems that are most likely to be compromised and scores the results on a scale from 0 to 100. You can then research those systems in depth with AI Hunter. Focus your valuable time on the systems that need your expertise with AI Hunter. Sign up for a personal demo today at securityweekly.com/ACM.
Welcome back, everyone, to Paul's Security Weekly. I have some announcements. Well, this is a regular announcement. I'm still not ready to make the big announcement yet, so you're just going to have to wait till we get through the regular announcements. Join the Security Weekly mailing list for webcast virtual training announcements and receive your personal invite to our Discord server. You can visit securityweekly.com/subscribe, join our list, join the Discord server, and subscribe to all of the shows on the Security Weekly network. Also, if you have a specific guest or topic in mind that you want to cover on one of our shows, submit your suggestions for guests by visiting securityweekly.com/guests. We will review those suggestions on a regular basis. We've added a couple more hosts for this segment for a big announcement, which I'll get to in a moment. Mr. Larry Pesci is here with us. Larry, welcome.
Thank you, Paul. Yeah, no, we're I had to be here for the big announcement because it's that big, but we're off camping with the family and sitting around the campfire. So
nice.
I'll be here for the announcements, and then we'll see you later.
Okay. Yeah, enjoy your vacation. Mr. Matt Alderman is here with us.
Hey, Paul. I had to move to the deck because I can't smoke in the house, and I had to pull out the Padron 50th for
nice
the celebrations. And I pulled out the local single malt Stranahan's Colorado whiskey for the occasion as well. So, yeah, I'm on the back deck.
I am smoking an Opus X Love Affair, which I have a love affair with, and or really, really old, and it's really delicious. And Stogie Santa, those of you may recognize that from the Stogie Geeks days, is a good friend of mine and recommended Glen Grant 15 and Glendronach 18 as his picks for Scott. And as always, Stogie Santa spot on.
Yep.
So
are you mixing them, or do you just have two glasses?
No, we're alternating.
Yeah.
Yeah. So disappointingly, Paul, because we're camping and we're in a state park, it is a dry park. There's no alcohol. So I'm having coffee
with bourbon in it.
No, minus the coffee.
Minus the coffee. Very nice. Very nice.
Hey, nice coffee, Larry. Nice coffee.
Nice coffee. All right,
Yes.
on to the security news.
sleep well.
Oh, wait, we had an announcement.
was there
what was it?
Paul, it's my first story.
announcement.
Refresh your wiki. It's my first story.
Oh, it's Matt's first story?
Oh, my God.
The link doesn't work until Tuesday, but I threw it in there.
Very nice. So Security Weekly has been acquired by the Cyber Risk Alliance, also known as CRA collectively. Some of you may know CRA from their acquisition of InfoSec World, the conference. We've been working with them well before the acquisition. We worked with InfoSec World. We've been working with CRA since they acquired InfoSec World about a year and a half ago. And it was a great fit for Security Weekly to be in the Cyber Risk Alliance family for a lot of reasons. Some of those will be pretty obvious as time goes on, and you'll see how that benefits the folks here at in the security community, the folks here in Security Weekly, and enable us to better serve our community. Those were, certainly my requirements and our collective requirements going forward in Security Weekly is that really they're the same. And I said this earlier today, of equal importance is many of you familiar with our culture here at Security Weekly. I mean, we don't take a whole lot of things seriously when we do the show, and we have a lot of fun, and we smoke and drink in the studio and in the office, and that's just part of our culture, is to do all this while having a lot of fun. So that is, of course, extremely important, and also to serve the security community. I think many of you have heard me personally speak to Ed Scotus on the show and tell Ed personally, like, look, dude, like I came to your advice and you were like, serve the security community, do good for others, and everything else will start to fall in place. And so, we've taken two of those things to heart. They're of equal importance, and those, of course, are preserved in, this next chapter for Security Weekly, which really gives us a lot more opportunity to grow, to expand our offerings, to better serve our audience here at Security Weekly across all of our shows and webcasts and all the things that we have planned. So,
congratulations.
It's a good thing. It's a good thing.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Matt, welcome.
It's an awesome thing. I mean, obviously, when we first sat down with Doug, we met him at RSA conference 2 years ago, right after he bought InfoSec World Conference, and we invited him to the studio because we saw a possibility for a strategic partnership with what he was doing, and his commitment to culture and community got us thinking about something maybe a little bigger. It took us a little while.
Doug was like, wait, hold on, we're gonna have Bloody Marys and smokes. He's like, this is like the best meeting I've been to like all year. This is great. And we're like, Doug, yeah, that's like this is how we do it. Yeah.
It's exactly right. I mean, Johnny made great Bloody Marys that day.
Mm-hmm.
He and John Whalen came in. We had a great meeting, and that kind of set in motion a very interesting set of conversations that had transpired into this acquisition. I think it's great for the Security Weekly family. I think it's great for our audience. I want to thank, all the listeners. We wouldn't be here without the listeners, the folks that have supported Paul from day one, and the continued support we get across the community. We couldn't have done this without all of our co-hosts that sit on these different shows, that support us and bringing that expertise to the community. We couldn't have done this without any of you guys. And I want to thank all of you, and especially Paul. I mean, when you called me back in October of 2018 and asked me to take this ride with you, I didn't think it would happen this fast, but man, it's been a fun ride.
Yeah, and it's really, it's a great fit. I believe there's other, kind of businesses underneath CRA that we're very much aligned with, and we're going to leverage to, better serve our community. So a lot of great things coming. You've heard us kind of tease out, doing some more stuff with labs and research labs here at Security Weekly, and certainly that's going to be a focus. You've heard us talk about potentially virtual conferences. I don't want to make an official announcement, but we're certainly working on that as well. So there's going to be some pretty immediate and eminent things that will come out of this that will essentially help build, bring great content to our community, which has always been our focus and our goal, is to do that. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
So that was my first story, Paul. Congratulations.
It's a big one. Congratulations to everyone.
I feel like we're missing something. We need some sort of little fireworks display to go off or something. I mean, come on, Paul.
Joff, it's surreal because we often congratulate our sponsors and our friends and companies in security that either go IPO or get acquired and are moving up to that next level. So it's surreal that the announcement is about Security Weekly, this week. So
and this time the community gets to congratulate us.
Yes, and of course, Matt's spot on. Thanks to everyone. We didn't get here by ourselves, right? The support of the hosts and all of our listeners over the years has just been outstanding. So thank you all for that. Keep listening. Things are going to be entertaining and interesting as always, and we're going to bring you a lot more content. So, and I won't crowd your feeds anymore. I promise. That's a pledge I want to make. I know you're already drinking from the fire hose, so we recognize that here at Security Weekly.
Absolutely. Oh, one more, Paul. We can't forget all of our sponsors. Thank you, sponsors.
Yes, thank you.
I forgot them in my thank yous, but I mean, obviously the sponsors have been a big part of this. We always try to keep that balance. We'll continue to keep that balance. I mean, it's obviously a lot of the conversations we'd have had with the Cyber Risk Alliance team on that balance of content. But we can't forget about our sponsors. They've been fantastic through the years. Like you said, we had 4 acquired last year. 3 have already been acquired this year. It's the first time we get to announce one for us. So it's kind of fun.
Outstanding. Well, look for more things coming. Larry?
Yep, Paul, I can't wait to see what comes next. I'm excited to hear about the labs thing, and it's fun and exciting times all around, and especially in this environment where so much is going crazy in this world, this seems like an amazing opportunity and thing to happen.
Yeah, it's the next chapter is going to be just as fun as the previous one, so I'm looking forward to expanding everything and growing and having all of you around me, listeners and hosts included. I mean, that's the reason why we started doing this, is so we could sit around with our friends and have drinks and talk about security, and that's what we're going to do. In fact,
and speaking of which, Joff, you said we need to have some fireworks or something. I think I know when that's going to happen, because I just got some emails from Sam about scheduling our 15-year anniversary show.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, like, 2 big things in 1 year. Sorry, Paul.
Yeah, let's not shoot the fireworks off inside this year.
Come on. That's the only way to do it properly.
You're no fun, man.
Oh, look at me being the party pooper.
Especially with this soundproofing stuff.
Right?
Like, ouch.
And Paul, I can't forget all of the employees. I mean, Johnny, Sam, Andrea, Joe, Marcin, all the folks that pull this stuff together. I mean, you got to think about, if people knew what it took to pull off what we do on a weekly basis, you'd be pretty surprised. We do it with basically 7 of us. And so I did forget the employees. Thank you all. Sorry, Sam, for not the mention, but there's Johnny. He makes all the magic happen behind the scenes. For those of you who don't know, I mean, the amount of content we push out on a weekly basis and how we've built systems to automate that is just amazing. And the team has done a fantastic job to get us to the next level. And it's only going to grow, so that's even better.
Absolutely. Yeah, the staff is amazing. They make sure that we show up and when we're supposed to, which is big, especially for me.
Sure. Even Reg, the squeegee guy who couldn't be here tonight, is to be commended for.
Yes.
Doug, he's in the sweaty internet room.
Yeah, I know.
Well, thank you, everyone, and we are excited. So, and with that, I'm also excited to talk about security.
Okay.
And drink and continue to have a good time. So.
And with that, I'm going to go back to camping.
Yes, Larry, go back to camping. Enjoy your vacation.
There's a campfire right over here.
Or summoning something. It looked more like you were summoning something earlier.
Maybe.
Yeah.
So
enjoy your coffee.
Yes.
Get back to summoning crap, Larry.
Yeah. Summoning coffee from beyond the grave.
Thanks, Larry.
Yes. All right, guys. We'll see you next week.
Bye, Larry.
Take care.
See you, Larry. Oh, golly gosh, I got Kerberos tickets. I love those things.
You got Kerberos tickets, huh?
Man, Kerberos tickets are like my favorite thing. Look, I gotta, every week I should actually pay homage and do a shout out to Tim Medine for the fine work. And I know it was more than just you, Tim, but the fine work on Kerberos thing, you totally rock, man. You made my life better.
I thought it was Kerberizing.
Kerber roasting.
Doug, just go back to academia, man, and just keep doing what you're doing. It's going to be okay.
Joff has tickets to the Kerberos concert. Okay? It's a virtual Kerberos.
But they were never the same after Keith left.
No.
I heard Springsteen's performing this year.
He's opening for Kerberos. At the Isle of Wight Festival.
Have you guys seen these annoying text messages that are asking about your packages?
Oh, God. I get like 8 a day.
What is up with that?
It's
just all of a sudden.
I get texts about my package every day. It's crazy.
Right? Like they found my package.
That package,
Oh, not that package.
No, that's your Tinder account that's going off.
I usually get texts that it's from Job.
Look, see, really you gotta look. Right now, we just gotta consider Paul's reaction, man. Paul, I do love you, man, but being quiet is changing you already.
I know he was wearing a coat and tie earlier.
I was not.
when I showed up.
No such nonsense.
He had a clipboard.
Now he's officially an acquired man.
He's like, I see, Doug. Hello, Mr. White. Welcome aboard. They blew a little whistle.
There'd be a very strict dress code from now on.
Yeah, when you come into the studio, it's just like, pipe the captain aboard.
You had to sign the HR employee agreement handbook.
Oh, I already had to sign that, yeah.
That first rule is like, that Joff guy, he's got to go. We can't have him as a co-host.
They already did away with Pantsless Tuesday, and it's just kind of like, what a drag.
What? A drag Tuesday?
No, they're replacing Pantsless Tuesday with Drag Tuesday.
I think we're just moving Pantsless Tuesday.
I'm good either way.
Are you mixing those two, Doug? I mean, I don't.
Pantsless Drag Tuesday. I'm there.
Man, what happened to the news
Paul was
today?
the acquired.
Hey, I told you you had some awesome things to look forward to here at Security Weekly.
Me and Josh Market are doing it. Yeah.
Oh, there's a
Hey, so
dangerous.
Paul, back to your story.
Yes.
Those aren't the only text messages I've started to see coming across either. I mean, packages is one, but I've also seen messages about your order, not necessarily the actual package delivery, but status on your order, or hey, welcome to your new account. Click this link. I mean, you're seeing attack shift into text messages where my guess is these are malicious links that they want you to click on so they can take over your devices. So, I've seen more than just the packet delivery ones.
Well, and it's
I'm also getting this really annoying email that says, it's an email that says, is this Matt Alderman? Can I reach you on this email address? I don't reply. I just throw them into my junk. But, I mean, I've been getting a ton of those lately.
Well,
That's because I use your email on everything.
There was another article about the evolution of phishing and welcome Vishing.
Yeah.
I mean, Vishing's been around since before there was compute like that. Now we're just going back to phone freaking. One can argue that
pretty much,
social engineering over the telephone. So the article is way off in, that it is a new evolution in touting it as something new,
something radical. Yeah, when it's really just
it's not
an
new.
old school thing.
I mean, have we reached a point where anti-email phishing technologies have progressed to the point that we're now starting to see attackers shift into other mechanisms?
Yeah.
Certainly the two stories we've talked about so far could be an indication of that shift.
It's getting to be a lot more difficult. I mean, if you look at the Office 365 improvements and what they're going to be bringing to the table for almost every user, that adds a ton of capability. You've got the Windows Defender with ATP built in, a lot of heuristics built into Windows 10. Phishing in general, with a lot of the controls for most enterprises, is, it's a little more difficult than it used to be. And in order to do that successfully, it becomes a multi-staged kind of component where you have to integrate both a pretext, a good phish, and often social engineering through Vishing, which is kind of adding a layer of trust and command and control via the human, right?
Yep.
So it is. It's just making it more difficult and adding another layer of attack surface to cover.
On that note, the one thing that I've definitely noticed is the same trend that Tyler was commenting at, and the issue that we're running into is getting payload into environments via traditional email phishing is becoming pretty untenable. But the drive-by, kind of reversing the relationship, getting a credential phish going is not so bad still, because that's just a link. And Vishing kind of falls down that same road, right? If you can partner up something like a credential phish with a voice backup to say, no, this is really legit. You need to do this, right? This is something that Microsoft is requiring of you, or this is something that your IT group is requiring of you. You're more likely to up your success rate on that.
For me, the awareness component that I think I try and instill on users is unsolicited communications.
Yeah.
Validate any unsolicited communications covers someone calling you out of the blue, right? Now, This can get tricky as you get into some of the more advanced attacks that have done copious amounts of research to know maybe they've hacked into other stuff and know something that I've done that is legitimate, and you're preying on that. Joff, Tyler, how often do you have to go to that level that if you are targeting a user, that you can't just say, hey, like, what about this package you might be expecting without knowing whether they ordered something? Are there ways to find out that, hey, this user like took this action and could be expecting this, and therefore it makes it 50% more legitimate than just out of the blue I get a text message. It's like, hey, come claim your package. I'm like, that's
usually, usually whatever pretext that you're leveraging from an enterprise or corporate level, you're going off of a piece of information for the good fishes, right? You're doing a very targeted spearfish. So you're going off of, hey, it's the first of the year or it's end of tax year, like there's going to be health benefits changes. So you research and figure out who the health provider is, and you send here's the updated coverage options for your new health insurance, or here's your new W-2 from your new company that's changing payroll. Things like that, where you're looking at the company's news, you're looking at current events, you're looking at certain employee announcements on Facebook or Twitter. So yeah, the personal things that are happening, like, you'd be surprised how many people announce, hey, I just ordered this on Amazon, I can't wait till it gets here.
Yes.
And you send them an Amazon order invoice that's, twice the amount with a couple links in it. They're going to click that all day. Like, they ordered 10 of these, they didn't expect to order 10, they're going to click on it. So you can definitely kind of glean a lot of that info and make your pretext much more plausible that way.
That's how I would approach it, and that's actually kind of scary that would have a high degree of success. The more advanced the pretext get, right, the better your chances are for success, basically.
So I was going to sort of double down on what Tyler's saying. I mean, intellectually, we sort of move over to leveraging the work from home scenario, and the work from home scenario means you're getting shipments of gear in and out. You're there in the home, first of all, and so if you look at that, you can change your tactics to kind of line up with the fact that people have a change in their business flow, and that's really what he's talking about, and it does work.
And they just have to shift this a little bit, because we're not the target audience for this, and a lot of people who very vaguely understand all this stuff like phishing and spear phishing and all these things, they're saying, okay, I don't, just like talking to your parents or whomever and saying, don't click that link when it comes in saying, your house insurance has failed or whatever. And they get used to that idea, and then they just shift it a little bit to, oh, your package has not been delivered. And, it's like, oh, this is a text. Nobody said anything about text. And so you can just kind of keep shifting that vector around a little bit, and that target audience kind of keeps getting sucked into that, again, vishing, smishing, all these things are just little subtle shifts in how that works to get people that are likely victims of this.
And you start to think about vishing, though, and you also end up relying on many of the vectors that we've been touting and kind of complaining about for years. But with the work from home, things like procurement, vendor management, those things have also shifted kind of outside of the corporate environment, where there may be internal communications, internal things happening. And so a call from a known vendor to a procurement company to change an ACH routing number, that's pretty hard to stop. And unless you have good policies and procedures and your people know how to identify and leverage these kind of security awareness tactics, they're going to be ill prepared to kind of deal with that, and that becomes the benefit for most of these attackers. They're able to do this very simply by leveraging a person's job against them.
And if they just have a good script, I mean, I saw that when it was going on for a while, where they just literally send like an email that has like, please update your routing numbers on the payments to the following, and they're just literally using information that's known about a company, but it makes it just that much believable that somebody's saying, well, they actually referred to one of our vendors, and oh yeah, okay, I'll just change it. And I've heard, I don't know, I think I've had 3 of those where they called me and said, is there any way to get our money back? And I'm like, God, no.
Yeah,
no,
usually not.
No, I mean we've seen those business email compromise kind of attacks, right? And wire fraud, changing routing and ACH numbers is one. I think we're just a little more susceptible to it in a remote environment where some of on, in person, on premise, in the office, procedures may be a little lax when we're remote, and therefore the potential for those attacks to be successful could potentially go up.
Yeah, and a lot of people were just trying to get their jobs done from home, and they were much more stressed about trying to get these day-to-day tasks done. They may not have access to the systems where they look this stuff up normally.
Oh, yeah. Joe's not available on Messenger to verify it, but it looks legit, so I'm just going to go do it.
And I couldn't reach anybody, and I just said, we got to get this
normally
approved.
I sit next to Joe in the office, and I would ask him.
And I just say, hey, Joe, is this legit? And he goes, yeah, that one's fine. But, now you don't have that. I got to call him, and he wasn't in, and people are getting upset. I'm just going to approve it.
He's working weird hours because the kids are home.
Yeah, you add to that flexible work hours. You have families that are trying to deal with kids and schooling during regular business hours. And you add stuff like VPN split tunneling, which a lot of companies have not figured out yet. And we're seeing some huge attacks against, like we said, we predicted this when this started happening, the endpoint computers and endpoint user systems, especially the ones doing split tunneling and the VPN back to the corporate office. A lot of the protections are missing, and we're able to leverage that split tunnel to gain access to corporate assets without going through a lot of the security protections that are usually in place or mitigating these risks.
But I bought a new router, and it told me it was, hacked. Wait.
Could we do some experiments where you have to hold two screaming infants and an incontinent dog and see how many times they click the link?
But it's fine. Like Matt said, your router's going to tell me that your QNAP or QNAS, whatever device is hacked. It's QNAS? But Tyler, I know you're a big Ubiquiti fan. The Ubiquiti Unify Dream Machine. This person says it was worth the cost.
It is. I mean, having used this adds... Okay, so from a personal kind of management device that has enterprise-level capabilities at the cost of a, consumer piece of equipment, it is very much worth it. You get layer 7 next-gen kind of proxy awareness. You get a smart switch. You get Wi-Fi with multiple SSIDs that are VLAN and guest segmentation for, say, like your kids' tablets or your IoT network. And then you have the ability to do all that through kind of a cloud-based key application that is running through an API. It is very well done. And from Ubiquiti standpoint, they're a company that has put a lot of energy and a lot of effort around security because they do run a lot of backbone kind of point-to-point networks for rural areas, for ISPs. So there's a ton of infrastructure that leverages these, and they're very heavily looked at. So the Dream Machine is one of my favorites, and I'm still kind of pounding on it. So hopefully nothing comes out of it because I use it. So we'll see.
He says his NAS is infected with QSnatch.
Well, I mean, you could have a Cisco device at home.
Could have?
I mean, I have that Meraki set up.
But then we get into the Cisco story, right? There's an engineer, right? Is he going to jail? Did he actually get prosecuted?
Jail. Yeah, they're going to prosecute, and it's again, we come back to this problem of, as an organization, as an enterprise, we have to be able to trust the people that we employ. But once you get to a certain size, your ability to understand the insider threat and be able to take mitigating and compensating controls against that becomes much more difficult. And we're seeing this more and more. I mean, even the NSA is having troubles. They've had troubles with this from the beginning, right? It's always an insider threat, and there's always that possibility. And so how do you kind of gear your organization to be trustful and to have a good culture while still maintaining a least privilege, as we should, for security?
Well, this Cisco engineer, he resigned from Cisco in April. When he hacked on him in September, nobody turned off his access. I mean, I agree you got to have least privilege, but hello, non-employee should have zero privilege. I don't understand.
That happens all the time. I audited so many companies, and we would go through this, and it's like Tyler said, when you got 7 employees and Kyle quits, okay. When you got 700 employees, 7,000 employees, 17,000 employees, I saw that so many times. We were pulling them out going, this guy is deceased, this guy is retired, this person left, this person was fired, and they're still in there. And they're going, oh, we're trying to clean that up. But, it's just, and then they don't. And then you get hosed. That's the worst person too, right? That gets fired, and then they're sitting at home going, "I still got access to this." I mean, I did a whole case about this once where they fired a guy, and he was still coming in. He was causing all kinds of mischief. He was clever enough to avoid them knowing he was causing mischief, and he was exfiltrating stuff. He was threatening people. He was blackmailing people. It was unbelievable what this guy was doing.
This is different from your IT director getting jail time for selling Cisco gear.
Yeah, this was Lee's story about the guy that was actually hacking. Mine was just like people behaving badly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I actually found yours pretty amusing, Doug, because I actually have witnessed the temptation in state agencies firsthand because I used to work for state agencies, and when a lot of these state agencies have a regular cycle of replacement of equipment, and they fully know the value of used equipment just 3 years down the road is huge, you can definitely see how that could happen.
Oh, right? Yeah. And they got pallets of stuff sitting around when they do a purge. You know, they literally, I've seen them where they've got hundreds of valuable gadgets just sitting on the loading dock getting ready to be trashed.
Well, yeah, so I had a...
Well, but these weren't getting ready to be trashed.
I know, but...
These were, like, he ordered 41 switches.
I'm not excusing the guy. I'm just saying...
And it was like, nah... Just kidding. I'm going to sell them and keep
I'm with
the profits.
Joff. I'm just saying, I see how it happens. I mean, this case is pretty heinous, and the guy basically committed a crime.
I absolutely, it's defrauding taxpayers. I mean, it's absolutely horrific what the guy did. But I have been in the position and witnessed that flow and how things happen, and I could see how easily it would occur, right? How easy it would be for somebody to slip into a mindset. Well, I just put these couple and take them home, or and you get one rung down that road, and before you know it.
Hey, I mean, I was at IBM in Rochester one time, and there was 4 J series AS400s, the J series sitting on the loading dock, and I was like, "What are those for?" And he was like, "They're going to the crusher because the person who ordered them is not going to use them, and we can't sell them." And I was like, "What would happen if those just fell into the trunk of my car?" And he was like, "Well, you'd probably go to jail." But I was like, "Yeah, or not."
Wait, what if just one
or
fell
not?
Yeah, I was like, I mean, they could just fall in my car.
What if no one told?
Yeah, what if they went to the crusher, but they were in my car?
Right?
Yeah, I see. It's tempting.
I remember when we pulled the VAX 11780s out of the power plant. They wouldn't fit in my trunk. They were too damn big.
No, these are J series. Yeah, there was a 650 12-way sitting there too. But yeah, I would have needed like a moving van and a forklift and all that kind of. But I was willing to go get one.
now there is a secondary story here, and some people are probably going to hate me for saying this, but I'm going to say it anyway. There are people in state government agencies that will track the used equipment auctions.
Yeah.
And they will follow a piece of gear as it leaves their IT department until they can actually legitimately purchase it for a highly discounted rate.
Yeah.
So this thing's got legs that goes a lot further than you think.
The one article we didn't throw in here, but we covered it on Monday. I don't know if you guys saw the story about the former CISO. I think it was it Uber?
Yeah.
Where was it?
It was on Security and Compliance Weekly. We did it on the news. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That was actually why that story I put up was on there, because of that.
Yeah, because he used the bug bounty program as a way to pay off a ransom attack. Again, I mean, sometimes people do some things that are just not on the up and up, and and then they get caught, and then we'll see where that one goes. But I just thought that was an interesting kind of corollary story to this one. Is that, look, even CISOs have been caught doing some nefarious things with monies that they have allocated for something like a bug bounty program to pay off a ransomware, so they don't have to disclose a breach. I mean, hello, that's a little crazy.
Let's continue the kind of fraud and criminal activity and talk about the article title. I thought didn't really do it justice, because it made it sound like if you were an Amazon driver, right, that you'd take a cell phone and hang it in a tree. But really, this was a person or group of people that would hang cell phones in trees like near Whole Foods or Amazon warehouses and act as a proxy, and then like basically get the job first and pass that off to another driver and take a percentage of the profits.
Subcontracting.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they would subcontract it out. But in order to do that, they had to get some, which I would be fascinated as the technology that they were using, as sophisticated or unsophisticated as it would be, because we can all come up with both scenarios and everywhere in between, where you take a cell phone, you're hanging it there, and it's running the app that's basically like, yes, give me the job. And oh, by the way, its GPS location is close to the Amazon warehouse, so I'm going to get the job. I monitor that remotely. I monitor that phone remotely, and then I pass that job off to someone else.
You take the phone and give it to them or whatever, yeah.
Right.
That was what Uber drivers were doing that too. They had people staked out at the airport, and they would hold a phone with that Uber. That person could be driving another job, and that way they could pick up jobs at the airport even though they were pretty far away from the airport.
Double duty, basically, yeah.
Yeah, and then when they get to the airport, the person hands them that phone, and they take the other one, and then they wait on another pickup, and they're trying to keep other people from getting the pickups.
I wonder how Amazon would deal with that type of fraud.
They're not the first company to be dealing with that actually this week. There's some other companies kind of dealing with the same thing around GPS-based tracking and kind of third-party outsourcing of jobs via bots. And I think we're going to see this more with like a lot of the AI, a lot of the programming technologies where you're utilizing machines that are faster than humans, and that obviously makes some people mad because you've got a select group of people that are optimized to do the work differently. So until technology and security catches up to this, it's a very hard problem to solve because you're leveraging things that are known that we've always trusted, aka cell phones and GPS. We've always said that these are not things to be trusted, and at some point we've kind of hit this collision point and crossroads where we have to start utilizing different mechanisms in order to identify where we're at, who we are, and what the device in which we're authenticating with is.
So what
actually
you're saying, Tyler, is that Amazon needs drones with lasers that patrol the perimeters of warehouses and Whole Foods and look into the trees and are shooting down any phones that might be dangling.
But I mean,
I just wanted to jack all the vehicles.
All the drivers should have RFIDs embedded into their skin so they know that they're physically there instead of just their phone being there.
Hey, Tesla control chips coming soon. You just embed that in your brain, and then the driver does what you want them to do, because drivers have been hacking this stuff as long as there have been drivers. I remember when J.B. Hunt put control mechanisms in their trucks, and the drivers, there was this interesting thing, and my friend found this it was very interesting. He found this neural net found that they were selling all these pails and the drivers were billing the pails to the company. And nobody knew why. And the driver said, it was for some kind of purpose they needed on the truck. What they were doing with the pails was when they wanted to stop at the, massage trailer or whatever, and they weren't allowed to do that, they would put the pails over the GPS signal, and it would drop off the map. And the drivers would, when they called the drivers, they're like, I don't know, must be sunspots. I'm out here hauling ass on I-70. I'm driving right now, man. No, I don't know what's going on. It'll probably come back a little bit. I think there's some trees or something. And, and then half an hour, they take the pail off and go, is it back yet? They've been doing this stuff for a long time. They used to hack paper manifests. They would have all kinds of lies. And so, I don't know if Amazon would do anything about it. As long as stuff's getting delivered and nobody's complaining, it may just turn into a secondary market for the giga market.
Well, it could be Amazon that's experimenting with jetpacks.
Well, that could be too. They got Elon Musk flying around with a laser taking care of bad drivers. It's like,
or the Mandalorian or Iron Man. We're not quite sure. It could be the Rocketeer, could be Iron Man, could be Mandalorian,
or it could be
Elon.
A new guy.
It could be Elon.
Doug,
I just have to say something. I feel like now would be a very good time for a public service announcement, so I'm going to make one. So just remember, kids, the things we talk about on this show regarding vulnerabilities, hacking, and security issues, most of us are employed to perform those activities under contract, meaning
we have
given
permission.
us permission to do these things.
Yep.
Okay, so just listen to your mother. As a general rule, if it feels bad, it probably is.
It's even easier than that, Joff, and what I've had to tell my children, specifically my oldest, quite a bit, that the difference between it being illegal and not is permission, right?
Yeah.
The difference between a hacker and a criminal is really is permission, and that's really all it is, right? So make sure that you have permission.
Oh,
excellent.
But
so
Doug,
many inappropriate jokes, I can't say them.
But Doug, every legitimate market has always found kind of the gray and black market alternatives, right? I mean, this isn't new. It happens in every legitimate market. You always create a gray or a black market somewhere in the mix, and people are just using this in these new gig economies to figure out the new gray and black markets.
They're hacking the system. I mean that's what they're doing. I mean, I'm not saying we don't need to work on it. I'm just saying there's always going to be somebody working that gray market in between the good and the bad.
I do want to talk about the jetpack thing because I think that's kind of interesting.
That's pretty interesting.
I really thought it was just a hoax, fake news. I was like, no way.
I think it's legit. I mean, I heard the tower transcript of the pilot going,
from multiple sources.
There's a guy. He's giving me the finger.
I don't know if he was giving the finger.
No, he wasn't giving the finger, but that's the way I imagined it.
I mean, I immediately thought of Iron Man. I mean, I think it was in the movies.
I was thinking Iron Man. Actually, I immediately thought it's Elon Musk. That's who I thought. I was like, it's an electric jetpack, and Elon Musk built it, and he's smoking a big spliff flying by the plane going, ah!
That would be very Elon.
Yeah, I can see that. I can totally see that. Elon is baked.
And the Tesla stock price goes up.
Yeah.
It's like CEO flies by jet.
I'm just anxious to learn more. I mean, that's basically all we know right now. It's all that's really been reported. You can read the transcripts from the multiple pilots. I don't know. Some articles said, but I read there was actually multiple aircraft that had with pilots, obviously, that witnessed this.
Well, it was in an LAX traffic pattern, so there was a lot of aircraft up there flying around, and it probably,
even in COVID, probably still a lot of aircraft.
Yeah, there's a lot of aircraft in airspace. So,
not in LA. Not necessarily commercial aircraft, but aircraft in general.
Lots of aircraft, yeah. And so people, and of course, one of the main, jobs of pilots is to keep looking at what's out the windows, not just at the controls. And when they see a speck out there, they're going, "What is that?"
Is that what you're supposed to do when you drive too? Look out the windows.
Yeah, but who does that?
Yeah, you are. You really are supposed to look in front of you. I mean,
I put my Tesla on autopilot and it takes me to work. It's fine.
Watch a movie. It's cool. Yeah, I can't wait for those days.
I just want to hear more. I want to hear what
everybody. I mean, that's like the hook of the year. That was bigger than the Security Weekly announcement hook.
Conceivably,
I don't know this Slack.
Well, yeah.
I mean, we got acquired, but they can fly.
We had a good announcement, but I mean, they had a jetpack.
I know.
Come on. And they're flying around LAX in a jetpack. I mean, come on.
There was a James Bond movie.
Yeah,
where he has a jetpack.
There is Thunderball.
Yeah,
Thunderball.
Yeah, but that was an actual. Some guy built that, and they
it was a legit jetpack that didn't work so well. They had a lot of trouble controlling.
Well, it was also 1973 or whatever. Yeah.
So I the one question I have though, and the one thing that's unanswered that's a bit of a mystery is, they saw this purported guy at 3,000 feet. That is really high altitude for a freaking jetpack.
Yeah, it's getting there.
I mean, so explain that.
Well, if I do it from my house, that means I'd be at like 10,500 feet in elevation.
It was Thunderball.
It was Thunderball.
And it was 1965.
Yeah.
So that technology, not to that altitude.
And it was Sean Connery,
but that technology.
A real Bond.
I don't think it was, it was whoever built it. I read it was whoever built the jetpack actually did it.
No, that wasn't Sean Connery.
Sean Connery was getting in the jetpack.
Money penny, bring me another drink, love.
Yeah. Any case. That was my favorite
How about
story.
Slack? Should we talk about Slack?
Let's talk about Slack, please. Talk about something else.
Like seriously, how many people have like 500 Slack channels on their computer, and how many people have Slack app installed, especially with the remote workforce, and they're divvying out, $1,750 for an RCE. Like, they
did lowball an RCE.
I like bug bounties, and I think it's good, but from a responsible disclosure piece, like, make your bug bounties worth it. Like, if you don't want to get popped, like, how much is that RCE worth if they sell that on the dark web? You're talking 50,000. Like, give them some freaking cash. Like, even $5,000, like $1,750 for an RCE with Slack. That's almost a disgrace.
It is.
That's an insult. I started to see
crappy.
it. Right?
I mean, I would hold that in my back pocket.
Matt, could you negotiate us a better rate, Wizard of Finance?
I'll do my best. I'll try. I mean, I did figure out the exposure on my camera as the sun's setting behind me, so why not? I'll take a shot at it.
Let's put it this way.
What was the nature of the RCE? Do we know?
So essentially, it's an injection attack where you're taking if I remember right, a JavaScript file. If you can get the file to upload, which they were able to do externally, then you can get RCE on basically the endpoint. So regardless of what the endpoint was, and that was Linux, Mac, and Windows.
How many versions back is it though? It was pre-version 4.4. So
yeah, 4. What was it?
It's 4.2 and 4.3, I think, but it was pre 4.4. Right. So
yeah, that's what that update was for.
So I'm curious, Tyler, if you had capabilities on the endpoint and think about all the potential integration points into Slack, does that now expose some of these other integration points as an attack vector now that you have an RCE on the local device?
Absolutely, and this is something that we've been pushing and covering for quite a while, is with all of these integrations for and pushes to single sign-on or SaaS, software as a service, you end up with the vulnerability for one application carrying over into something like, hey, maybe you have a Jira integration into your Slack, or maybe you have a GitHub integration for your core code, and now you're able to leverage this where you're able to look at any of the GitHub requests coming in. You're able to search Slack. You're able to use that API to pull down passwords or files that are being shared across multiple channels or teams, and then getting RCE on that device. That means that anything that device or user can sign into with single sign-on, you've now exposed. So you're talking G Suite, O365, potentially Salesforce. So
HubSpot. Because we've got a bunch of those integrations too.
I mean, that's sort of the...
Hold on, not anymore. Hold on.
that's sort of the essence of single sign-on threat anyway, is that the more you integrate everything together, the bigger the threat becomes. I mean,
right.
You know.
So the 4.4 was like 9 versions ago of Slack.
Yeah, I was going to say, I just checked this version of Slack.
Or January.
Version of Slack on mine, it was like 4.8 something.
Yeah.
4.8.0, 64-bit.
And like how it auto updates is always an exercise left to the reader, right? Because it changes per version. It changes the version of the operating system you're on, how you installed it, whether or not your patch management software is going to pick up on it. If you've got multiple versions of Slack, right? Working in vulnerability management, I feel like I saw like every different scenario of like how vulnerable software persists on a computer.
But they're just lucky that guy that found it was honest enough to actually turn it in for that dinky amount of money.
I agree. That's kind of the big point here, right? Like they have the ability, and they do a pretty good job of keeping the auto update feature. And SaaS is a great use case for that, where we're when we're talking about a single sign-on or a SaaS application, you're leveraging the fact that other companies are making sure that that's auto updated, that it's rolling, you're not having any downtime, but you're also relying on the fact that, hey, someone was honest enough to have a bug bounty program and turn this in, and at $2K for an RCE across multiple platforms, like, show some love and make sure that you're taking care of the hackers, because you don't want to piss off the hackers. That's kind of the last thing you want to do, especially from a bug bounty program.
Or you could just do what Uber did and just use the bug bounty to pay a ransom. So just go after the ransomware attack instead.
I mean, I'm not going to say that's a bad idea. Honestly, that's a creative hack from a C-level guy. I'll have to give him some credit for the creative thinking there.
What else we got? Now that we beat Slack to death. Almost literally.
Well, speaking of Elon Musk, there was this story about this espionage business that came up. And basically what happened was a couple of weeks ago they said somebody in Nevada got compromised, or attempted compromise, and then they revealed this week that it was Tesla Gigafactory, and that the guy was literally offering people speaking of good amounts, he was offering $1 million to take a flash drive into the plant and plug it into a machine somewhere.
I think we covered this one last week.
Well, we did, but we didn't. All the details weren't out.
Gotcha.
And I mean, I've kind of been going on about it because I was talking about old school espionage tactics making a comeback. And as low-hanging fruit disappears and it gets harder to get into systems, it seems like maybe some of these nation states that have big espionage organizations are going, it used to really work when we sent, James Bond in and he coerced people into doing things. Maybe that would work better than any of this other elaborate stuff, and it would be a lot cheaper just to send a guy with a suitcase with $1 million in it and say, hey, let me in the back door.
I mean, from a negotiation standpoint, right? Like, you're talking $1 million, and you look at what it costs for a technical team, and leveraging a 0-day, which is worth a lot of money to purchase, right? Like, that may be a good return on investment if you're talking simple numbers and a business value. But you talk about, kind of depending on what you're going after, looking at a couple of the other articles around like NPR News and some of the news background network where they're looking to implant botnets.
Yep.
The kind of long-term game, what the strategy is, and how prevalent or useful that access can be for, disseminating disinformation. We got elections coming up that is a huge problem. We're helping very large customers try and deal with the amount of info coming in around, bad information, misinformation, disinformation being leveraged by nation states. $1 million is not that much to pay someone to go and implant something, or have someone develop it and put a botnet in the back of NPR News. Like, these are big networks with big opportunities to.
And I kept banging on that because we spend a lot of time talking about sophisticated attacks, and they have the tradecraft to do this. They have people that have been trained to do this. They have people that have spent years training to compromise assets. I was trained on this stuff when I worked for DoD. They sent us to trainings. We were talking earlier about a person.
Black Widow.
A woman walks up to you in a bar and says, hey, you're really my type. And I'm going, yeah, right, you're an agent for sure, because that's never happened before. But, I mean, this is the same thing. That tradecraft does work. It's been shown to work. And you send out agents doing that. Like Tyler said, it may be a lot cheaper to do that than to leverage a 0-day.
Well, I don't even think they have to commit, like, the full espionage, right? I think what we're looking for in terms of ease of access is just getting you a foothold in the door. Like, all I need you to do is just put this thumb drive in the computer, and like that gives us access, and then like you're done.
Yeah.
Like, cut
you got
your
€1 million
losses,
in a Cayman account.
Got €1 million, and the next week you die in a mysterious accident. And
there is that part, but
there's probably that
may
part
be
too.
That may be something even simpler than that, right? Like we talked about with phishing, leveraging a user's job against them. We may be simply a pawn inside of a scheme where we are simply being used from a procurement standpoint as a vendor in. Like, you may be a simple company that just handles, say, a fire system, right? A fire system that then connects to the internet, that then connects to the network, so that their physical security staff can audit and monitor on their local network, right? Well, from that standpoint, yeah, you're just a small pawn and you're just a small company that doesn't really have to think about security. But from a nation state, that's an easy in. And this has been going on for a long time. And this is how a lot of places are getting in, is through these third-party and vendor integrations. So we got to keep thinking about how that supply chain looks.
Yep.
Yeah, the target breach, right? That was HVAC, right? That was an HVAC compromise that ended up getting into the target systems to create that breach, right? That's one of these use cases, right? I mean, they got in through the HVAC system. So any third party that has access into an environment potentially becomes a vulnerability that has to be managed for these types of attacks. All you got to do is pay somebody off in one of these third party systems to give them one little foothold in the organization, and look what can happen.
And so if you use that, if you use that tradecraft that they used to use against defense contractors, and now you're targeting HVAC installers, that tradecraft may well work very effectively.
Right.
Yeah, you're talking about someone that makes less than $20 an hour,
right,
and or is not trained technically. That really, if you've got a pretty good pretext and a plausible deniability, they're not going to question whether or not you're part of the IT or you're there to help with the installation. Like, their job is to do what's on the paper and to get home by 5 p.m. Like,
I saw this happen. There was a 2-stage attack where basically what they did was they sent a prostitute to pick this guy up. He went and had sex with her. Then they said, we're going to tell your wife unless you do this one small thing, and we're going to give you $100,000, walk away, and you're done. And
I think it was Godfather Part 2.
Is that the Godfather Part 2?
Godfather Part 2. No? Anyone? No, it doesn't.
I think it was the Godfather Part 2.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, there was a senator that did it.
It was a senator.
When he says Godfather, all I'm thinking of is like horse heads on pillows. And
that works too.
That was Godfather Part 1.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Godfather Part 1, but that's a very effective tactic, I tell you.
In Godfather Part 2, the prostitute died mysteriously, and that was the...
And they got a picture of the Congress or the senator with the person. And yeah.
How do we get on that? Anyway, the FBI is worried that Ring doorbells are spying on police. And I think this is a very sensational headline, and I do not agree with it because that's not what the article is really about. It's really about, well, if criminals have a Ring doorbell as an example, they can see that there's a SWAT team or law enforcement about to serve a warrant on the premises. Right. But in reality, again, it kind of goes back to our other story about Vishing, right? Like, none of this is really new. Like, what are you saying? Criminals never had the capability to do any monitoring of their property? That now, well, that just, don't pay attention to that.
When did that happen?
Right?
Oh my
pay attention to the fact that we can have Ring doorbells now, and it's very sensational, and it's Ring, and now you can see if law enforcement's going to...
They just pay a 10-year-old kid to stand across the street, and if you see a police car pull up, bang on the trash cans, and everybody runs out the back door.
I think that was every mafia movie.
That was every mafia movie ever made.
Ever made, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, with cell phones now, I mean, look at all the video we capture about all this stuff, right? I mean, like I saw the bear video. Who's videoing this woman getting attacked by a bear? I mean, we've got these devices in our hands. What do we need Ring for? Hell, we walk around with these cell phones all the time. We could do some of this monitoring ourselves.
What I thought was dangerous is that in the UK, Wiltshire police have set up a database of private smart doorbells and security cameras, and residents are being asked to register theirs. So what does that mean? If I register my doorbell...
Ring's doing the same thing.
Right? If I register my doorbell with the police and they want to serve a warrant in my house or something else, whatever, they can disable my doorbell so I don't see them? Is that where we're headed?
So they can
The question becomes, what is the purpose behind the registration request? So we can't rush to judgment. I mean, you have to ask what motivated the legislation.
Sorry, Joff, we were all talking over each other, but I think what you were saying was that registering it doesn't mean they have access to disable it necessarily.
Right. No.
Right. I was just saying that, we shouldn't rush to judgment.
Right.
I know in America that's not a popular opinion. We shouldn't rush to judgment because it seems like everybody is rushing to judgment these days.
Well, with the instant access to information, Joff, it's out of control of just rushing to any kind of judgment and inform an opinion based on whatever facts are out there. Which is also what we're doing with this article, right? So, I mean, but let's dissect the article. Like, what if I register, and hypothetically speaking, I register my Ring doorbell with the police, and I'm a criminal and need to serve a warrant? Can they then send that warrant to Ring and go, hey, we're going to serve a warrant at this address. We need you to, at this time, disable the camera because we've gone before a judge and we've done our due process and we're going to serve this warrant? I'm not saying I'm not saying I agree with this strategy. Like, it's still kind of shady to me.
But the one you're talking about is in the UK.
It's in the UK. It's not in the US.
And basically, what they were asking them to do in the UK was the law enforcement people just wanted to know if there were Ring doorbells in the area where they were going to serve a warrant, and it's probably because they're worried somebody will see them coming to serve a warrant, and then
and they might do it differently. Or
so they
if there was a crime, I mean, it could be a positive thing. If there was a crime committed in the area. Crimes are being committed in my local town as well, right? The report is teenage kids are from the hours of 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. walking around neighborhoods, and if a car door is open, going through the car and looking for any valuables. In one instance, a car was stolen. And I was like, well, how did that happen? And my wife actually did a little research and read up on it. And she's like, well, the woman had left her purse in the car was unlocked, and inside of the woman's purse was the key fob to start the car. So the kid, my theory is the kids probably just took it for a joyride, kind of thing, rather than a professional car thief where your car is, gone in 60 seconds. That was also, we're just full of movie references tonight.
Yeah, that's why you leave a purse with a honey badger in it on the front seat. And then.
But that's my thing, and I know, Tyler, I won't call you out, but I know you've had some issues with theft this year as well, right? That's my thing. I almost don't want the criminals to hear this, but I almost want to put basically a honey token or a honey pod in my car, right? I want to hang a dash cam, right? I want to hang a dash cam in every single one of my cars, and it's not really a dash cam. It's got a tracking mechanism on it. So if someone does get into the car and they want to steal my dash cam, I can just pull up my app. And when the police get there, I can go, you want to go arrest the person who's right here.
My car has that. It's built into my car.
Some cars do have
I can pull it up on my phone. If my car, I can tell you where my car is anytime.
Your car, but if they steal something out of your car is my point.
Like my honey badger.
I'm going for something that's unique, like a bright blue, CD player that is like one of a kind in the area. Like something like freaking obscure from China that I'm going to be the only one in the area letting it go because I'm okay with it getting stolen.
Right.
To figure out who these bastards are, and then tracking them down via Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram. Like they post these things and they try and resell them. And so I've got alerts up for all the stupid things that I'm putting up to get stolen. That honeypot thing is no joke. Like, I'm gonna catch someone.
But much like hackers, though, if you find one group, that's not the only group that's doing it, right? Like because this in my town, this type of burglary basically is very common. I'm not I'm not convinced that it's the same organized group doing it. Right? Well, these are different.
You catch one and then they rat out the other. Like I'm all for leaning on some people.
Right, but does it come back? Does someone go, well, yeah, they got caught, so I'm just going to be a little more cautious, and I'm going to do it again, and it's a completely different group of people? Because the police will basically tell you, well, just make sure your doors are locked. I'm like, yeah. Well, that's all well and good, but at what point, similar to our conversation about phishing and vishing, do they start changing tactics? Do they figure out how to use Google and go, can I find a list of vehicles that I can order some parts on the internet that I can basically just unlock the car and do that? Like, I don't want to give them ideas because obviously this is illegal activity. It is very much burglary, probably breaking and entering if it's someone's property. Again, I'm not a lawyer, right? But once they start to get a little more sophisticated, conceivably they could. If we were criminals, that's what we would do. We would go, how do I, basically spoof the key fob? And I don't need to do that in every single vehicle on the planet. Let's pick the easy ones, and then I'm going to go patrol around, and I'm going to look for those vehicles.
I just got to make one comment.
Hang on. Sorry, Joff and Tyler, we're talking over. So, Joe, we're going to let Joff go first.
Okay, I've got one comment, and that is, in these COVID times, do you know what the best possible honey token there is for a vehicle? It's right here, baby.
Hand sanitizer.
I was thinking a honey purse, right? Where you embed a token in a purse.
Perfect.
And they steal it, but
a 24-pack of toilet paper.
Yeah.
Well, there's that too, but I went with hand sanitizer, right? You put hand sanitizer in your center console. Sure as shit, somebody's gonna break into your car these days.
I think just like hackers, though, like most hackers are like, if they're not sophisticated, they're using targets of opportunity, right? And I think that kind of plays along to the same thing with thieves. Mm-hmm. And so really identifying and understanding our enemy here, don't be a target of opportunity for one. Yep. But if you are, like, what's the backup plan? Like, I really don't know. Like, doing the honey token thing is kind of the only thing I've come up with from, I don't think criminals are generally sophisticated or generally smart or technologically sound. There are a few out there, and I think those are the ones that don't get caught. But at the same token, like, these are just people that are looking to make a dollar, that are out walking around and they see an opportunity to break the law.
Mm-hmm. And in this case, it's interesting too when we talk about Ring doorbells and all the cameras that we can have. They're somewhat useless because most of them, to be honest, at night are not high resolution enough to capture someone's face. Even if it was, like, what's your law enforcement resources to go, yeah, like, someone stole an iPad from my car and therefore, close down all the borders to my state and search everyone, and we're going to find this person, right? I mean, in my estimation, right? I mean, you've worked with law enforcement a lot, Doug, and many of us have, right? Like, it's not a high enough value or heinous crime enough to warrant that level of investigation, which goes back to Tyler's point, like, basically don't be a target of opportunity. I mean, there are some definite parallels into cybercrime and your security posture in your organization. Like, just don't be a target of opportunity is kind of what we talk about in security basics, basic security hygiene, doing the minimum standard, moving up on the security maturity scale.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Make them work
really,
for it.
Most of the commercial or consumer grade cameras that even give you a pretty good discount on like your homeowner's insurance. You're talking Ring, you're talking the Nest, the Arlos, like all of them, from a actual practicality use of pulling footage off and being able to go back and recover any data that's useful for law enforcement. They're all useless in my opinion.
And of course they can see you. They can see you've got it. So they, unless of course then some of them are that stupid. But you wear a mask. I mean, right. It's like okay, even if it's a super high res infrared picture, it's like it looks a lot like Ronald Reagan in a mask, and
Which I mean, they should be wearing masks because of COVID-19 anyhow.
Well, of course they should. Yeah. So speaking, in these days, like even polite thieves are like wearing
a mask. I mean, wear masks for your benefit and for mine too. But this is more for your benefit.
There's one other stupid trick with the cameras, and that is what happened to our buddy Mikey. They stole his camera.
Right.
Oh God.
No, it happens a lot with the is it Arlo, right? Because I have them too. They're battery powered, so you can put them. You don't need to run a wire to it. So I'm like,
pull it off the wall.
I can put one on my tree, like way near the curb, and I'm like, oh wait a minute. What's stopping someone from wearing a mask and just going in? That happened a lot when Arlo first came out with those cameras. People were putting them too far away from their property, making it, to Tyler's point, a more opportunistic attack, being like, well, I just put my hoodie up, I put a mask on, and I'm just going to steal your camera. And it's not, I mean, even if you're not technologically savvy, you could totally reset the device.
Or just
Google search and sell
just throw it in the trash, but I mean, it's like,
Right?
Or spray paint it or sell it or I mean, it's not the end all. It's just one thing in the defense in depth.
Yep.
Because you want the camera, then inside the house you got the 12-gauge shotgun. I mean, those two things together, you got defense in depth.
You don't want to rig it up as a trap.
I didn't say a trap. I'm holding it.
I'm
saying freeze, sucker, before. Yeah.
John Strand and I covered that legal case in our slides years ago.
You can't build a booby trap.
Can't build a booby trap. It will,
Doug, you don't even need to say anything. All you have to do is rack the first shell. It'll scare the shit out of most people.
I know, but it's fun to say freeze, sucker. I mean, come on.
Doug forgot
the warning shot from the sniper's
shotgun's
nest.
Loaded.
What?
Make sure the shotgun's loaded.
Well, you don't put it in this chamber, though, because you have to rack that shell, and you don't waste one. It makes that perfect sound.
You got to have the pump action sound, because that's
that's why nobody buys automatic shotguns, because you want to go, and it's like, if you can't do that, I mean, come on.
Oh boy! How do we transition in the maximum lifespan of SSL TLS certificates is now 398 days, starting on September 1st of this year. So 2 days ago, it will be 398 days from the previous maximum certificate lifetime of 27 months or 825.
What does that mean for a lot of like automated systems and or like I would say like Chef or Ansible or a lot of hosted providers where they're leveraging these long-standing certificates?
Yeah.
How does that play into that whole of life cycle?
Yeah, because I want to say I bought one that was 3 years, 5 years. You can buy them.
5.
Admittedly, I have not kept up on
up until now.
Up until now, maybe.
Yeah, now it's like, oops.
So
but that's where somebody like a Digisert who helps you manage the whole life cycle of certificates kind of comes in, right?
I agree, Matt. That was
about life cycle management of these certificates going forward.
Yep.
What is this accomplishing though? Like, what is the kind of just behind the 398 days? Is that the span of evaluating a site as being not malicious or acceptable to encrypt your data? Or is that the span of SSL's ability to be decrypted? Like, what's kind of the driving force behind this is what I'm wondering.
Yeah, is it like a password change kind of thing?
Or we need to sell more certificates.
Yeah.
Maybe. But I think Paul's kind of on it, right? We used to do this with our password rotation. Is this a way just to force us to rotate our certificates so that these certificates don't potentially become compromised? And that means you have to have certificate lifecycle management capabilities in place to manage these now, because the expiration to them are faster. I mean, we're talking a little over 13 months, right?
Yeah, you're going to need that. I mean, because so many things today require a valid certificate.
Yeah.
In fact, I was working with streaming services and stuff like that, and like OBS, for example, you can't tell it to accept an invalid certificate. So even if you want to test something and see if it works, I needed a valid certificate for that, right? I mean, that's where certbot Let's Encrypt comes in, right, to do that. But now I have to worry about rotating that.
Yep.
And so so certificates aren't just obviously for websites, they're for OBS to talk to your streaming proxy server, as I just set up, which I hope to do a segment on because it was a lot of fun. And I'll share my container build for that because I think it's pretty cool. And there's so many other instances where it not even in like I feel like it used to be in production we needed real certs, and not in production we could get away with like -- ignore SSL errors or whatever the switch is for whatever you're testing with. Now even in testing, I'm like, I need a valid certificate. And thankfully we have Let's Encrypt and we can do that. But even that gets tricky when you're like, well, I'm not testing on the internet, right?
Yeah. But I don't understand where they came up with that number.
Yeah, that still doesn't explain why.
Well,
now, basically we have a year.
It was in 2018 they went to like, I forget, it was like twice that. And then this latest change is cutting it in half. They're trying to deal with the compromised certificates that are out there, or compromised certificate authorities, to reduce the risk. But I don't know. But it's only for the TLS certificates. Encryption certificates, digital signature certificates still have the longer life cycle. That's totally cool. So it's a very specific type of cert.
Things are getting a lot less loosey-goosey. Just like cross-origin.
I'm with Paul. I want automation behind my certificate renewal. Then I don't have to care whether it's a month or 13 months. Who cares? Let automation take care of updating it.
Well, yeah, there ought to be some kind of mechanism for that.
You've got to admire the EFF and Let's Encrypt initiative for that. They've done a good job with that stuff. And on top of that, it makes my job as a pen tester so much easier, because when I want a legit certificate,
right, you can just script it.
I just ask for one.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's awesome.
You don't even have to ask for one. Your Python code can just ask for one, Joff.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Yes.
It's beautiful.
It's pretty beautiful.
Really, SSL certs are kind of
Python job, not job. Damn it.
But I'm noticing, like, we talked about SSL, right? But I'm also noticing with respects to things like cross-origin policies, which is my story number 15, cross-origin resource sharing, and the access control allow origin headers, an article from Acunetics, also happens to be one of our sponsors. Very, very good article. But in some testing recently, I was actually using Python requests, Joff, right, to authenticate, log into a website, and take actions. And what was happening was I was authenticating to xyz.com, and then I was accessing something on xyzpro.com, and I was being denied. And requests like without adding some logging, I was like, what's going on here? I don't understand. And then I realized that request is carrying over the cookies and the headers from the original requests and responses, carrying those over to the new connection. And since my domain name changed, it was like, no, wait. Domain name 2 does not honor things from domain name 1. Right, however, like 2 years ago, that code actually worked. Right?
Then you add CDNs on top of that, and then you add something like a load balancer in front of the CDNs, And I mean, this is how most of the internet's working today. There's a huge kind of gap there between stuff that attackers are going to abuse and leverage, as well as like, how do you even know where all of your ad tracking data is, where the cross-origin policy should go, and what JavaScript you're running that does a lot of that back-end leveraging? And
I feel like this is being enforced more strictly today than previously. I also think, Job, that like request is awesome. In just because it does a lot of that work for you, right? Like I said, it carries over all your cookies and the headers from your previous request, which I didn't realize it did until I had a problem with it and I researched it. I'm like, oh, like that's why I don't have to like save the cookies manually from my previous request and like replay them anymore. Like Python request is taking care of that for you automatically.
It's got a cookie jar in the session object and it just keeps it, which is fantastic. But you violated same margin policy.
Yep.
And ran into the problem. So request was doing the right thing.
It was. I agree.
And but denying that. And
yeah. So, and Jeff, I had to change my URLs around to basically log into the same site as I was accessing, and that was just changes on the site that I was accessing. Had changed some of their domain names around. So once I made all that match, everything worked and everything was great. But I had to do some troubleshooting, and I was like, wow, things are like a lot more strict than they used to be with respect to all stuff, which is a good thing. Don't get me wrong.
Right. And the other interesting thing that's happening, right, a lot of these header-based policy mechanisms are dependent on stronger browser or stronger client-side implementation as well. And in most cases, people are complying, right?
Yes.
Now, you can still turn off some of those controls, but for the average user, they're going to be less exploitable because the browsers have those controls in place.
Yeah.
So you say that's a positive, right?
And websites today are totally expecting a browser. Like any code that you have that's scraping, like you're basically using Chrome driver with a headless, Selenium to get anything done if you're doing any kind of web scraping is also the other thing I've noticed. And we've talked about that with web application scanners, but any code that you have, like you're basically updating it so you've got a headless browser that's making the request. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to read the DOM. Otherwise, you're going to get hung up on these header policies.
Web scrapings get more difficult, right? Because you've got to look at the fact that the technologies on the front end, most of them are doing just API calls now and updating the DOM dynamically in the browser with some sort of JSON RESTful based technology. So scraping is going to be a fully implemented browser to be able to do it, which is painful, right?
I find, Jeff, the painful part is it makes your containers and applications a little heavier because I can't just write it in code. Like, basically, I have to include a headless browser in my build and call that in Python, like from Selenium, basically, right?
Right, and unless you have a nice API, right? It cuts both ways, because if you have a nice JSON-based REST API and you can just get the data directly, you're in much better shape. Right. You just go straight to the source.
But what I find is, from a hacker perspective, the difference between scraping and API is I can be tracked and forced to use quotas much more stringently in an API, because if I need to authenticate, I got to have an API key that's coded to my application, and therefore it knows what my application is doing and can enforce limits. When you're doing things like password spraying or other things that you would want to do from a pen tester's perspective, you don't want those limitations, so you're going to want to go towards scraping, but that now means you're going to have to implement a full browser, pretty much regardless.
But then they're implementing hard-coded API keys in almost all their stuff, and so you're just leveraging their keys against them themselves.
And APIs vary. I mean, YouTube is the absolute worst at like just hating their customers, hating their content providers and their creators, and just enforcing ridiculous things in their API. There are other APIs they interface with. They're like, it's cool. Once you register with us, like there's no quotas. You do the key. It's totally cool. But like once these larger providers, like the reason YouTube has this is because of abuse. So once that provider starts to see abuse happening, they're going to start to enforce things.
Yeah, they start to lock it down.
And they're going to lock it down.
Yeah, because they have to, right? I mean, it's a it's a real deal. API design itself is kind of an art form, and the smaller guys that do it well, we personally really appreciate, right? Because you can leverage those things. Like you said, they're really clean, they're useful, they're, but yeah, it is ripe for abuse, and YouTubes and bigger entities. Twitter does it too. They lock it down pretty good. I've done some Twitter API work. They're pretty picky now about you declaring exactly what your application's going to do and so forth. Right?
Well, LinkedIn too, I think, Joff. I mean, LinkedIn is even more locked down than I think Twitter has been traditionally, with their APIs and what you can and can't do with them.
Yeah, the last time I've updated my Twitter bot, I had to write a pretty lengthy justification. It got kicked back once, and then I rewrote it, and basically I ended up putting one sentence. I'm just trying to automate myself. That's what I put in the sentence. They're like, okay, yeah, you can have a key. So,
but like, what I hate to be the person or on that team that has to approve all that stuff, right? Because you can imagine the stuff
and the lies.
And the lies that they get, right? The other interesting thing about APIs that it trips you up is the file sizes and stuff, right? Because you go to Twitter and you go make a tweet, and I can upload a video, and hey, like it can be 20 meg. So then you start writing to the API, and they're like, no, it can't be 20 meg, because now through the API you can programmatically make tweets, which means you could overwhelm Twitter.
Well, you could dump out million 20 meg videos.
So I feel like that's almost like rule number one. If you're developing an application that uses an API, read the documentation very clearly and realize there's different limits from what you can do as a user with a browser, making one request or one tweet as an example, versus programmatically.
Rule number 2 is just don't be a dick, because
there you go.
Yeah, because then it'll suck for the rest of us, right?
Yeah,
then they'll change it and make a bigger restriction
for everyone.
Yep, and now it's like, oh, you're not doing that anymore.
Sleep is your friend.
There you go. It's always that one person that spoils it for the rest of us.
Yep. Usually that's me.
Time to wrap up.
Time to wrap up. Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching. Thank you, everyone, for participating in this episode. That will conclude this week's Paul's Security Weekly. Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching. We'll see you next time. Over and out.